Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 30th chapter, verse number 2. Yam yam artham upadatte dukkhena sukhahetave tam tam dhunoti bhagavan puman chochati yat krite. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the Supreme Personality as the time factor destroys, and for this reason the conditioned soul laments. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The main function of the time factor, which is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to destroy everything. The materialists in material consciousness are engaged in producing so many things in the name of economic development. They think that by advancing in satisfying the material needs of man, they will be happy. But they forget that everything they have produced will be destroyed in due course of time. From history we can see that there were many powerful empires on the surface of the globe that were constructed with great pain and great perseverance. But in due course of time, they have all been destroyed. Still the foolish materialists cannot understand that they are simply wasting time in producing material necessities which are destined to be vanquished in due course of time. This waste of energy is due to the ignorance of the mass of people who do not know that they are eternal and that they have an eternal engagement also. They do not know that the span of life in a particular type of body is but a flash in the eternal journey. Not knowing this fact, they take the small flash of life to be everything, and they waste time in improving economic conditions. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport.
So we are seeing in this chapter, spoken by Lord Kapila Deva, about the powerful time factor. And so in this verse, Lord Kapila is saying, Yam yam artham upadhatte dukkhena sukhahetave. In this world, everyone is looking for happiness, sukhahetave. And because of that pleasure and happiness, they are ready to work very hard and taking upon themselves a lot of pain. Dukkhena sukhahetave. And in this way, they produce varieties of objects. Artham upadhatte. One acquires upadhatte. But then, whatever people acquire with great difficulty for the sake of happiness, tam tam dhunoti bhagavan. All of that is dhunoti, is vanquished, is finished. By whom? By Lord Himself. Tam tam dhunoti bhagavan. And as a result of this, what happens? Puman shochati yat krite. And people who work very hard, they lament about it. So whatever is produced by the materialist, artham upadhatte, with great pain and labor, dukkhena, for so-called happiness, sukhahetave, the Supreme Personality, Bhagavan, as the time factor, destroys, dhunoti. And for this reason, yat krite, the conditioned soul laments, puman shochati. So this is a very wonderful realization. that a devotee should have, that in our lifetime we may acquire many things. Could be assets, could be name and fame, could be big qualifications. But all of that will be Dhunoti Bhagavan. Lord Himself, in the form of Kala, destroys. That's why Prabhupada is saying the main function of the time factor, which is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to destroy everything. So it's actually to see this, that everything that we acquire will be finally finished. To see it in the right perspective and to respond to this understanding requires spiritual intelligence. Many people may say, but still they do not respond to that understanding rightly because they lack spiritual intelligence. Just last week, about 2 or 3 weeks back, 2 genetic engineering scientists released a book in somewhere in Barcelona in Europe. The book was called Death of Death. And so these genetic engineers have made a claim that very soon immortality will become a scientific reality. People don't have to die. Aging has to be reclassified as a disease, and we will cure it. And people can choose not to die. And so that's the claim of the scientists. And they say that in the next few decades we will do it. And then he also made a claim, one of the 2 scientists made a claim, that he has chosen not to die. And he says in 30 years from now, he will be younger than what he is now. So scientists come up with this kind of claims. And so somebody asked him in that event during the book release, if people don't die, what will happen? This planet will get overcrowded. So for that his reply was, don't worry, by then we would have found out how to live in other planets. So they may be big scientists, but they cannot realize, they cannot see these things. In fact, I remember when I was much younger, at that time, scientists had just then, not actually just then, a few years back, maybe a decade or so, had just discovered the helical structure of the DNA. That's the beginning of all of this genetic engineering, genes and all of that. And the 3 scientists who discovered that, they were given a Nobel Prize. And one of them, when they received the Nobel Prize, they give us an address, Nobel Prize winning speech, which is considered a very big thing. And so one of the scientists mentioned that our discovery of the genetic structure, the DNA structure, is actually so significant in science that very soon all diseases will be cured. And in about 30 years later, he himself died of cancer. See? This is how things happen. And so people make these kind of claims, we will become deathless. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is one interesting story of a king. This king, he wanted to become Ajayam, means inconquerable. He wanted to become this very powerful king. And he also had a desire that he should become Ajara. Jara means old age. He should not have old age. Ajara. And his another desire was he should become Amara. Mara means death, and Amara means he does not want to die. And his another desire was Apratidvandvam. Dvandvam means there is another rival. Apratidvandvam means unrivaled. There should be no rival for him. And his another desire was Ekarajan. He wanted to become one single king for the whole universe. And you know who that king was? Srimad Bhagavatam says, Hiranyakashipu Rajan Ajayam Ajaramaram Atmanam Apratidvandvam Ekarajam Vaditsatha. That was the desire of Hiranyakashipu. So, the desire of the spirit of the demons is that they don't want to recognize God, God's arrangement in this world, and they want to tamper with it and try to conquer and become Ekarajan, become Ajara, Amara, and Apratidvandvam, Ajayam. So that's the kind, it is not a new thing, actually, what these scientists are talking about. In the history of humanity, many, many kings, many people had actually tried all these things. But they don't know that yam yam arthamupadhatte dukkhena sukhahetave tam dhunoti bhagavan. All of that will be destroyed by the Lord, by the powerful factor of time. I remember some years ago, there was an article about some tourist attraction somewhere in some part of the world. And that was a big palace, and the palace is surrounded by a big fort. And a lot of tourists go there. It's an important tourist destination. And then the description said that the fort was built of stone and 20 feet thick. Can you imagine? 20 feet thick and so many feet high. Big fort all around the palace. So that it said that there were enemies for this king, and to protect himself from these enemies. And he built this palace, and around the palace he built the fort. So when I was reading that, I was thinking, oh my God, such a powerful, such a strong fort he has built, this king. And no enemy should have conquered him. And so in the palace he must still be living. But obviously not. Right? One may build a big fort, a big palace, and may have an army, and all of those things. All of that is Atma Sanyesh Asatswapi. Bhagavatam describes that all of them are fallible. None of them are infallible in the face of the force of time. That everything gets destroyed. So this is the reality, and but unfortunately, people are not aware of this. They create varieties of dreams and desires, and that's why Krishna describes this aneka chitta vibhranta moha jala samavrutaha. So chitta vibhranta, they are actually bewildered. They come into this world and they look around, and because as human beings we have intelligence. We can see things, we can analyze things. And when this intelligence of human being is not directed with superior intelligence, superior wisdom from the Vedic literatures, we will not know what to do with this intelligence. We'll try to create a civilization, we'll try to create develop things in the name of knowledge and science and technology and all of these things with the hope that we will become happy. Sukha hetave, dukkhena sukha hetave. It's actually a contradiction. We work so hard and struggle to become happy and create so many things. With great pain, we work to get pleasure. That's the sense of this expression in the Bhagavatam. Dukkhena sukha hetave. With great pain, we work to get happiness. So, and artham upadhatte, lot of valuable things we try to acquire and thinking that this will make me happy. Tam tam dhunoti Bhagavan. Everything will be finished by Lord Himself. So, the question may be raised that we understand that we are spirit soul and we are eternal. Somebody may ask the question, how do we know we are eternal? What is the basis? How do we know? Because those who die don't come back and tell that, no, don't worry, I'm still around. That was only a body which died. And so it remains a very big puzzle in this world. It's an unsolved puzzle in this world. What is this death? There was somebody right in front of us, and that person suddenly something we call death, and the next day onwards he's not there. He occupied this house, he occupied my life, he or she influenced my life, and I had a strong relation with that person, and suddenly that person is not there. So where is that person? So it's definitely a question which is a big mystery in this world. So how do we know that we are spirit soul, and how do we know that we are eternal? So actually, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, Antavanta ime deha nityasyokta sharirinaha. So, Antavanta ime deha. This deha is antavanta, has an end. It is bound to be finished. Antavat. It has an end. Nityasyokta sharirinaha. But sharirinaha, sharira and sharirinaha, sharira is the body. Sharirinaha means the occupant in the body is nitya, is eternal. How do we know? Nityasyokta sharirinaha. Nityasya, nitya asya uktaha sharirinaha. Asya sharirinaha nitya uktaha. Ukta means it is said. So, Prabhupada comments on that and he says, even Krishna is citing from tradition, from scriptures. So it's not some kind of a dogmatic statement. Iti uktaha. Uktaha means it is said. So even Lord Krishna is saying it is said, respecting the tradition, respecting knowledge received in the parampara. So it is not some kind of a dogmatic blind claim. It is said in the tradition, meaning this has been ascertained by knowledge, by realization, by great sages, and that is how we can know. In other words, we can know the truth about soul, about our existence from Vedic literatures, from the words of the great acharyas, not otherwise. So, is it all some kind of a belief? No. It is not just some kind of a belief. But there is a process. If we accept that process and train our consciousness, we will be able to perceive the presence of the soul. And that is the purpose of religion. That is the essence of religion. And that religion which enables us to perceive the self, not just theoretically, by realization, not just by some kind of a bookish knowledge, but by realization. That is the essence of religion. Not many people know this. That's why Krishna explains, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram idum uttamam Pratyaksha avagamam. Pratyaksha avagamam, Prabhupada translates that as, this knowledge enables us to perceive the self by realization. So it is not just some kind of a theory, it is not some kind of a belief, that there is a training by which you can perceive the existence of the soul, and that is the essence of all religion. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyaksh Avagamam Dharmyam. So this is the dharma. Dharma is meant for understanding and perceiving. Pratyaksha Avagamam, meaning just like as we can see each other. Pratyaksha. And it is very evident that you are sitting in front of me. It is so pratyaksha. In the same way, one will be able to see the presence of the soul. Not just the soul, what is this soul? What is the connection of this soul? Just like when you see the sunlight, you immediately conclude that it is daytime and there is sun is up in the sky. Because we know when you see sunlight, you know it is coming from the sun. In the same way, self-realization, complete self-realization includes God realization. Because we don't have an existence of our own, because we are amsha of God. Just like sunlight has no existence of its own. It is an emanation of the sun. And hence, complete self-realization includes God realization. There is no such thing as self-realization without God realization, because self does not exist on its own. So, this is the import of the word Nityasyokta Sharirinaha. Uktaha, meaning it is ascertained by deliberation, by authoritative knowledge, by spiritual discipline and realization. So this is not some kind of a dogma, this is some kind of a belief or something like that, but this is something that can be verified, that can be experienced by everyone. So there is another interesting point that Prabhupada makes here. Before that, this in the sense of ascertaining, uktaha, ascertained knowledge. In the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, when the 6 questions are being asked by the sages of Naimisharanya, one of the questions they ask is, Tatra tatranjas ayushman bhavata yad vinishchitam pumsam ekantataha shreyaha. So, the word vinishchitam, Prabhupada explains, which means it is something that you have ascertained by knowledge and realization. These are sages asking Sutta Goswami the question. In the previous verse, they describe Sutta Goswami's extraordinary qualifications. You are so well versed, you have served your spiritual master as a wonderful disciple, and because of that, your spiritual masters have bestowed you with all the confidential truths. So now, you are such a competent and qualified person. Tatra anjas ayushman. We bless you to live very long. Anjas ayushman. Bhavata yadvinishchitam. What have you ascertained? Pumsam ekantataha shreyaha. What have you ascertained to be Pumsam ekantataha shreyaha? What is the highest benefit for all of humanity? That you please explain to us. So it's a very significant question. Now, they are asking a question to a right person who has all these qualifications, and they are asking him, with all your wonderful qualifications, what have you ascertained to be the highest benefit for all of humanity? Pumsam ekantataha shreyaha. So, Bhagavatam, the answer to these 6 questions the sages ask is the subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, if someone is interested in ekantataha shreyaha, pumsam ekantataha shreyaha, what is the highest benefit of all of humanity? Not just for Indians, not just for men, not just for human beings, not just for one sect of people, or pumsam ekantataha shreyaha, for all of humanity. So that's the confidence that Bhagavatam is presenting. And here there's something very interesting. People do not know that they are eternal and that they have an eternal engagement. You see, if we are eternal and if we are able to come to an eternal position, what will be our eternal engagement? That's an important question. Imagine, just like the scientists we were discussing, if, for example, if they say that now we have found a way, everyone can live forever, it will not be received very well by most people. All the wives will think, oh my God, my husband is going to be for eternal. Forever he is going to be my husband. Or the other way too, husbands can think, oh my God, I have to live with her eternally. So, and what will we do? Oh God, I have a job, it's such a boring job, and eternally I have to be doing this job. So, the issue is that, the first thing is that we are eternal, we are spirit soul, and we have an eternal engagement. So, that information, that knowledge, that what is that eternal engagement? I know one devotee, one ISKCON devotee, who was born in a Christian family. He went up to in the church on a Sunday school. He went to the church, he went and asked the priest, if you say God is eternal and we are also eternal and we go to God, what does God do and what do we have to do there? And the idea was that if God is eternal and he doesn't know what he is doing there, and we also have to be there eternally, my God, it looks like a boring thing. Better be here. So the priest got very annoyed and said, don't ask such silly questions. But actually it's a very profound question. If we are eternal, what is our eternal engagement? So these are the very special revelations of the Bhagavatam. Because the Bhagavatam points out that the Supreme God is a person. That's an important revelation. Not a powerful force or anything. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast removed. That's the couplet that Srila Prabhupada wrote during the Vyasa Puja of his spiritual master. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur strongly preached that the absolute truth is a person. Janmadyasya yatonmayaditiratas chartesh abhignaswara. That's the proclamation in the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That source from which everything emanates, and that source which maintains everything, and that source into which everything goes back and rests. And that source is Abhignaswarat, is completely independent, is not dependent on anything else, and is Abhigna. Abhigna means a person, sentient, full of consciousness, full of awareness, and that means a person. So that was a strong proposition that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur talked about. And so if the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person, what does that person do? What is that absolute person's engagement? Is a next logical and important question. Now, Bhagavatam develops this idea in the very beginning that which, because a person means, the most important thing about a person is always looking for pleasure. If there is any displeasure, we will try to change our position and look for pleasure. That's the fundamental drive of every person. So if the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person, and the person means driven by pleasure, pleasure seeking and enjoying, how does that Supreme Eternal Person enjoy? What does he do for his enjoyment? What is the nature of his enjoyment? That's the fundamental question. That Bhagavatam says that pleasure a person receives or a person experiences is in the interaction with another person. A person cannot be happy alone. Suppose you lock yourself up in a room and you are alone. You will get bored. In half a day you will get bored. You'll start looking for a newspaper, or if you have a phone call, of course you will want to make another call to another person. So in other words, in person-to-person interaction there is pleasure. And person-to-person interaction pleasure is called rasa. And person-to-person interaction can be in various flavors. And that's how there are many rasas of interaction and the pleasure that comes from the interaction. And there are 5 primary rasas and there are 7 secondary rasas. In this way, that Supreme Absolute Person became many in the form of his expansions and in the form of the living entities for his pleasure, so that he can interact in different rasas, and that rasa exchange is the one which gives him pleasure and which gives his expansions also pleasure, because his expansions are also personalities. This kind of an understanding, and in that supreme state of existence of absolute truth, what does he do? What kind of pleasure exchanges he has with his expansions who are absolutely devoted to him and they love him with all their heart. And that is what Krishna demonstrated in Vrindavan. That is why Vrindavan pastimes, Krishna in his manifestation as Krishna, where he freely demonstrated all the different rasas that he enjoys with his devotees in the spiritual world, eternally that was revealed. So in other words, not only we are eternal and we have an eternal engagement, that's the greatest revelation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Not many Vedic literatures do this. Not many religions in the world do this, because to understand this and to experience this, to benefit from this, it requires extraordinary qualifications of purity of heart. So that is why it is rarely, kshiti viralachara katipaye. Very rarely these truths are disclosed, even in the Vedic literatures. It requires high qualification. So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out, who do not know, the mass of people do not know that they are eternal and they have an eternal engagement also. So Srila Prabhupada, once in 1976, Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, and he was giving a Bhagavatam class, and he was talking about scientists, how they are making these kind of claims, and people are carried away by that. And at that time, I'll read a small paragraph of what Srila Prabhupada very strongly felt and explained. Prabhupada said, they have no knowledge. He was referring to the scientists who think that they have, so much understanding. They have no knowledge. Still they are passing as scientists, philosophers, and misleading persons. This is our greatest grief. So Prabhupada said that this is his greatest grief. That was his pain. Therefore, I am requesting you all. In Los Angeles temple, Prabhupada was giving, and there were all devotees, and he's saying, therefore I am requesting you all, just make a plan to face these rascals and defeat them. They are misleading the whole human society. Now the Krishna consciousness movement should take this turn. They may not think that these boys and girls, so-called Krishnas, they are sentimentalists, chanting and dancing. That is, of course, the ultimate goal, but they do not understand. They think that we are simply sentimental. We are the greatest scientists. We are the greatest philosopher. We are the greatest humanitarian. They should know that. So that was the kind of a spirit that Srila Prabhupada had, that people should not think that we are just some sentimentalists, that actually we have the highest philosophy, we have the greatest, and we know Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada has given us the knowledge. What is the greatest humanitarian work? Pumsam ekantataha shreyaha. What is that highest ultimate benefit for all of human society has been sufficiently vinishchitam, deliberated and ascertained, and presented by the great sages, by the great acharyas. So that's the good fortune, and Prabhupada is saying that that is his grief, that is my greatest grief. And so to serve Srila Prabhupada and to spread this knowledge, that will please Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. We'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.